7 signs you belong to a forbidden circle of demonic dark chosen ones. Have you ever wondered why your life has always felt different, as if there was a veil over your existence that others could not see? We are born into families, into systems, into worlds that pretend to know the rules, but some of us quickly realize we were never made to follow those rules. That realization is not just rebellion, it is the whisper of an ancient current pulling us into the forbidden circle of the demonic dark chosen ones. And when I say demonic, I do not mean it in the shallow way religions use it, pointing fingers at evil. No, here demonic means of raw power, of the forces that terrify the ordinary. But to belong to this circle is to live where light fears to look, to embody truths so potent they are hidden under centuries of lies. The first sign that you belong is the feeling of permanent estrangement. You sit among friends, you laugh, you talk, but deep inside you know you are not of them. It is not arrogance, it is awareness. You sense that their concerns are paper-thin, while something far greater gnaws at your soul. How many times have you felt that you could almost scream because the conversations, the routines, the normal life seemed unbearably shallow? That scream is the mark. That scream is the sound of your soul refusing to be buried alive.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
The second sign is that life seems to break you more often than others. You are the one who suffers the betrayals, the losses, the collapses. People may think you are cursed, but what if that curse is the very initiation? To belong to the forbidden circle, you must be stripped of illusions, shattered until no mask remains. And here is the paradox: each time you fall, you rise sharper, darker, stronger. The world keeps wondering how you survive, but survival is not the right word. You transmute. You do not merely heal, you transform pain into fuel. Ask yourself right now, how many times have you endured storms that would have destroyed another? The third sign is the hunger for forbidden knowledge. Others may run from the shadows, but you are drawn to them. You are not satisfied with half-truths. You dig until your hands bleed. You question morality, religion, authority. And though society calls this dangerous, you feel alive only when you touch the forbidden. Why? Because your soul remembers. You remember that truth is never found in the safe, but in the abyss. And if you belong to this circle, you know that the abyss is not just darkness, it is where the deepest light hides. The fourth sign is the power of presence. Have you noticed how people react when you walk into a room? Some are fascinated, some are afraid, some try to challenge you without even knowing why. That is because your aura is not neutral. It is the vibration of someone who has walked too close to the veil. It unsettles those who have built their lives on fragile illusions. And sometimes, even without speaking, you expose others. They feel seen in a way that terrifies them, because you carry the mirror of truth, and truth burns. The fifth sign is the war inside you. Every day feels like a tension between the light you were taught to follow and the shadows you secretly know are yours. And sometimes you ask yourself, am I wicked, or am I simply awake? This is the riddle only the chosen ones live with. For the forbidden circle is not about worshipping darkness, it is about mastering it, embodying it, wielding it as a blade, not being devoured by it. Those who misunderstand will always label you evil. But we who walk this path know it is not about good or evil, it is about power and truth. The sixth sign is the inexplicable magnetism toward destruction and creation simultaneously. You are fascinated by endings, by collapse, by chaos. You may even sabotage yourself at times, as if testing whether you can rise again. But you are also drawn to create, to build visions that others cannot even imagine. This duality is not a flaw, it is your inheritance. For to carry demonic fire means to burn down what is false and breathe life into what is real. You embody Apocalypse and Genesis in one body. And if you belong, you already know this cycle intimately. The seventh sign, the most terrifying, is that you are never fully free to leave. You can try to run from your path, bury yourself in ordinary life, numb yourself with distractions, but the circle always calls you back. Sometimes in dreams, sometimes in sudden accidents, sometimes in moments of eerie synchronicity that shake you to your core. This path is not chosen by you, it chooses you. That is why it feels forbidden. Because the human self resists, but the deeper self has already said yes long before you were born. Now, let me ask you, have you felt this pull? That sense that no matter how far you run, you are being guided, tested, marked. And if so, why do you think you were chosen? What is it about your essence that cannot fit into the machinery of normal life? The answer is not simple. But the first part of truth is this: if you resonate with these signs, you are already walking among the forbidden. The question now is, what will you do with it? Will you deny it and let it rot inside you, or will you embrace it and learn to wield the very fire that once terrified you? This is the awakening, but it is only the beginning. Because to know you belong is not the same as to understand why you belong. And that is where the next part of our journey begins, where we explore the hidden contracts, the invisible powers, and the terrifying responsibilities that come with being one of the demonic dark chosen ones. The hidden contract: why darkness demands more from you than you realize. There is a contract written not in ink but in the architecture of your bones, a covenant older than your memory, that the moment you brushed against the edge of the forbidden it began to stain your life with purpose and penalty. We call it a contract because it binds you whether you signed it or not, and because with every step into that shadow you accept terms you cannot later revoke. I will tell you plainly, belonging to the forbidden circle is not a badge of glory, it is a commission, and commissions have costs. The first clause of this contract is that you must learn to be honest with your darkness before the darkness becomes honest with you. That practical training is simple to describe and brutal to do. Map your triggers, name your most shameful impulses, and sit with them until they stop surprising you. Do not reform them into virtues prematurely, let them show their shape. Only by illuminating the edges of your shadow can you begin to sculpt it into an instrument rather than a prison. The second clause is solitude as discipline. We romanticize solitary initiations, but the real work is not being alone, it is learning to stand unsoftened by consensus. Practically, this means creating repeated, enforced intervals of silence and uncompromised reflection, daily fasts of input. No news, no chatter, no scrolling, but just breath and observation for blocks of time. In those intervals you will discover the voice that called you to the circle, and you will also learn the price. Relationships will thin, conveniences will fall away, and people will mislabel your discipline as cruelty. Accept this loss as tuition. It is cheaper than a life spent bargaining for mediocrity. The third clause is authority over fear. The circle does not remove fear, it repurposes it. You must practice transmuting fear into strategy instead of allowing it to become an excuse. A practical exercise: when you feel paralytic dread, write the exact worst-case scenario in one sentence, but then list 3 actionable next steps you could take within 24 hours. You do this until your nervous system registers fear as a signal rather than a verdict. The 4th clause is responsibility for consequences. Every act of intensity you unleash will impact others, sometimes innocents. If you are tempted to romanticize chaos, I demand you temper that romanticism with accountability. Practical accountability looks like naming the people who will be affected by your moves and taking concrete measures to mitigate harm before you act. The 5th clause is stewardship of power. Power without stewardship becomes tyranny, and tyranny eats the soul. We train stewardship through small, repeated commitments. Keep your promises about the tiny things, manage your money transparently, and cultivate rituals that return what you take from the world: a deliberate gift, a public confession, a work of service. These build the neural architecture for larger-scale ethical use of force. The 6th clause is the hunger for initiation. Once the circle touches you, it will demand new thresholds, faster tests, stranger losses, more exquisite discipline. Do not be surprised or resentful. Instead, prepare by widening your capacities incrementally: endurance, concentration, empathy under pressure, and the ability to hold 2 truths at once: the capacity to witness beauty while preparing for battle. Finally, ask yourself a question I will throw like a gauntlet into your chest. If the darkness has chosen you not to destroy but to transmute, what will you sacrifice of your comfort, your reputation, your illusions to become the instrument it requires? Answering that question is not rhetorical, it is a blueprint. Write your answers. Set one non-negotiable habit for the next 30 days that aligns with them, and report back to yourself without flinching. This contract is severe because the work it asks of us is severe: mastery of self, stewardship of power, and fidelity to truth above communal approval. If you accept these terms, the circle will not merely pull you into shadow, it will teach you to carry flame in the dark. If you refuse, the circle will still mark you. Only then the mark becomes a wound rather than a mantle. The alchemy of choice, turning demonic urges into sacred strategy. We must understand one brutal truth: being chosen by the forbidden circle does not absolve you of choice, it refines it. The darkness gifts tendencies: rage, audacity, appetite for risk, but those tendencies are raw, not finished gold. If you are to survive and become luminous, you must learn alchemy, the inner discipline that converts instinct into intention. Without this transformation, the same forces that could liberate you will enslave you. The first step in this alchemy is to inventory your impulses like a commander taking stock before battle. Write them down with precision. When do you lash out? When do you freeze? What images recur in your mind when you imagine power? Name the exact sensations in your body. Each naming is an exorcism. Each mapped impulse is now something you can meet rather than be overwhelmed by. You cannot master what you will not name. The second step is to create micro-rituals that interrupt the reflex arc. The reflex anger, sabotage, withdrawal fires faster than thought. You must plant small, deliberate actions that break the momentum. Insert a 3-breath buffer, a single sentence you must say aloud, or a physical gesture that halts the cascade. Over weeks, this rewires the nervous system. What once detonated now pauses long enough for wiser architecture strategy to enter. The third step is to practice what I call the moral treadmill. Simulate decisions with escalating stakes in private so that when the real moment arrives, Your muscles know the choreography. Each day, choose a small ethical dilemma, decide publicly what you would do and why, then act on it. This trains you to carry accountability into large moral storms. Courage is not born in grand moments but forged in tiny, repeated rehearsals. The fourth step is to cultivate allies you can be naked with, people who will reflect your worst without flinching and will hold you to repair. The forbidden circle venerates solitude, but isolation without mirrors becomes madness. But you must balance solitude with brutal, sacred feedback loops. When you are seen in both your brilliance and your failures, your shadow loses its power to trick you. The fifth step is to repurpose your most dangerous fantasies into creation. If you imagine destruction, design art that contains the destruction. If you fantasize about control, build systems that protect the vulnerable instead. Channeling is the heart of alchemy. It converts destructive energy into constructive architecture. What once threatened to consume you becomes fuel for works that outlive you. Finally, learn the discipline of delayed gratification on a spiritual scale. But when your appetite for impact surges, delay the act until three conditions are met: clarity of purpose, calculation of consequences, and a plan for redress if harm occurs. This rule is the hinge between demonic impulse and godlike stewardship. And to live by it is to wield power without being corrupted by it. Ask yourself now, what single pattern in your life would change if, instead of acting on its first surge, you waited until you could answer those three conditions? Write it down. Make the wait non-negotiable for 30 days. If you fail, confess to someone who cares and try again. The alchemy of choice is not mystical. It is a disciplined practice of mapping, interrupting, simulating, sharing, channeling, and delaying. Do this and the demonic tendencies in you become instruments of radical transformation rather than instruments of ruin. Refuse it, and those tendencies will shape you into what you fear most. Are you willing to do the work? The final revelation, carrying the forbidden flame without burning yourself. The forbidden circle does not choose you for comfort. It chooses you to carry a flame that others cannot hold, a flame that can scorch or sanctify depending on how you wield it. By now you understand the estrangement, the contract, and the alchemy of choice. But there is one last dimension: how to carry this inheritance into the world without allowing it to consume you or corrupt those around you. This is the hardest work, because it demands you live with paradox every single day. First, you must accept that you are both danger and sanctuary. People will come to you seeking intensity, energy, even chaos. They will feel drawn to your fire. Some will want to use it, some will want to extinguish it, and some will want to worship it. None of these responses are about you, they are about what your flame awakens in them. Your task is not to bend under their projections, but to remain rooted in the truth that you are both destroyer and healer. This duality is permanent. To reject one side is to fracture yourself. To integrate both is to become whole. Second, you must establish sacred boundaries. The circle does not demand that you sacrifice your sanity on the altar of service. Quite the opposite, it requires that you build vessels strong enough to contain your fire. Practically, this means designing rituals of rest, spaces of stillness, and relationships built on mutual respect. It means saying no more often than yes. It means protecting the core of your energy so that when you do release it, it is precise and transformative, not chaotic and wasteful. Third, you must learn to transmit without preaching. Those who belong to the forbidden circle often feel the urge to shout their revelations, to warn or awaken everyone they meet. But the deepest influence does not come from words, it comes from embodiment. When you live the discipline, when you carry yourself with the quiet authority of someone who has faced the abyss and returned with fire, people sense it. They adjust their lives in your presence, often without knowing why. Silence, in this sense, becomes louder than speech. Fourth, you must create works that outlive you. The forbidden flame was not given so that you could merely survive your own storms. It was given so that you could leave behind something: art, systems, wisdom, protection that alters the trajectory of those who come after. This is the responsibility of every chosen one, to turn your private trials into public treasures. Ask yourself, what will remain when I am gone? A scar or a legacy? Fifth, you must embrace the cycle of death and rebirth. The path of the dark chosen is never static. Again and again your life will collapse, and again you will rise. Do not resist this rhythm, it is the pulse of your initiation. Each death strips away another layer of illusion, each rebirth arms you with sharper clarity. When you stop fearing the collapse, you step into a power that cannot be broken. Finally, you must remember that the flame is not yours alone. It is older than you, larger than you, and it will continue after you are gone. You are a steward, not an owner. This humility protects you from arrogance and keeps you aligned with the truth. When the burden feels too heavy, remind yourself you were chosen not because you were flawless, but because you were willing. And so I ask you this last question, now that you know the 7 signs, the hidden contract, the alchemy of choice, and the responsibility of carrying the flame, what will you do with it? Will you bury it, letting fear and denial smother it until it turns into poison? Or will you rise, even trembling, to become the one who holds the forbidden fire with grace, with clarity, with unshakable purpose? The world does not need more people hiding from their darkness. It needs those who can walk into the night and emerge carrying light forged in shadow. That is what it means to belong to the forbidden circle of the demonic dark chosen ones. And if you are here, if these words burn inside you, then you already know you were born for this.